The sun had barely dipped beneath the line of crimson cliffs when Talek, the youngest Apache scout of his clan, spotted the faint disturbance in the sand. A single trail light hurried cut across the desert floor toward the sacred ridge. Whoever made it either knew where they were going or had wandered into the one place every Apache child was warned to avoid. The hollow cavern, a relic of a time so old even the tribe's eldest storytellers spoke of it only in trembling whispers. Tightened his grip on his spear and followed. The evening wind pushed against him, warm and restless, as if trying to pull him back. But Talek was young, proud, and already aching to prove himself. Tonight felt like his moment. And yet, beneath that fiery ambition, he sensed something else, in uneasiness that pricked at his spine the closer he came to the ridge. He found the cavern entrance hidden behind a veil of thorn branches. The intruder's footprints disappeared inside. Talek took a slow breath, lowered himself, and stepped through. At first, the only sound was the soft drip of water echoing through the stone passage. But deeper in, the air shifted cooler, almost humming with energy. Talek's instincts sharpened. He remembered the elder's warnings. This place is not dead, it only sleeps. But he kept going. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber lit by an eerie blue glow. It wasn't fire nor sunlight, but something older than his people, older than the land itself. The walls were carved with symbols he didn't understand, swirling patterns that seemed to shift as he looked at them. And there, at the center, stood a stone altar, smooth, unbroken, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Talek felt drawn to it. His steps were cautious, but his curiosity pulled harder than his fear. When he reached out, he meant only to examine it, to understand what ancient force drew strangers into sacred ground. His fingertips brushed the stone. The chamber shuddered. A crackling shock raced up his arm, seizing his breath. Light flared. Beneath his skin, weaving across his palm like living fire. He stumbled back, panic erupting in his chest. That's when a voice split the silence. Talek spun around, heart pounding. A woman stood in the shadows where moments ago there had been nothing. Her hair flowed in dark waves. Her clothing, unlike anything of his people's, woven from silver threads that shimmered under the blue. Like her eyes, wide with terror, locked onto his glowing hand. "You shouldn't have touched it," she whispered again, softer this time, as if the fear was draining out of her and turning into something else. Regret, maybe? Or sorrow. Talek tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. The burning mark in his palm throbbed, each pulse echoing deep inside his chest. What have I done?" he managed to ask. She stepped closer, slowly, like someone approaching. "A wounded animal? The stone of memories woke for you," she said. "It hasn't done that in generations." Her voice trembled. "And now, your soul is no longer your own." Talek's breath caught. The chamber suddenly felt smaller, colder. He looked down again at his palmat, the spiraling mark that wasn't just carved into his skin, but glowing from beneath it, alive. In that moment, his world shifted. Whatever life he thought he understood his clan, his duties, his future was swept aside by the terrible weight of destiny. He didn't know it yet, but that single touch had altered not just his fate, but hers, and neither of them would walk. Away from this chamber, unchanged. For a long moment, neither Talek nor the strange woman moved. The cavern's blue glow flickered around them, throwing shifting shadows against the stone walls. The air felt charged now, vibrating softly as if the chamber itself had wakened and was listening. Talek's heart hammered so loudly he wondered if she could hear it. The woman took one careful step toward him. "My name is Arya," she said, her voice low, melodic, and threaded with an ancient sadness. "And you, Apache warrior. You've touched something that should have remained asleep." Talek straightened defensively, tightening his grip on his spear, even though the energy burning in his palm made his arm tremble. "I followed an intruder. If I disturbed something, it wasn't my intention." A faint, humorless smile tugged at Araya's lips. "Intent does not matter to the stone, only destiny." She nodded toward his glowing hand. "It chose you." Talek's pulse quickened. "Chose me for what?" Her eyes darkened. "To remember." The word hung in the air, heavy and confusing. Talek frowned. "Remember what?" "Memories that are not yours. A history your people have forgotten. A curse my people tried to bury." Arya stepped beside him and gently, almost reverently touched the stone altar. It responded with a soft pulse, as if recognizing her. This relic holds the last echoes of my ancestors. It is a vault of suffering, sacrifice, and warnings. And now those echoes are inside you. Talik's breath caught. He stared at his palm, the swirling mark glowing like molten silver. I didn't see anything. I only felt pain. Arya shook her head. The visions will come when you sleep, when you close your eyes, when you let your guard down. A shadow crossed her expression, and once they begin, they will not stop. He felt a cold dread unfurl inside him. What are you? You're not Apache. No, she said softly. I am one of the last of the Akorienza people, forgotten by most tribes. We lived in harmony with the stones until one among us sought to twist their power. Her jaw tensed. My people paid the price. Talik saw pain in her eyes, raw and real. For a moment, the cavern felt too quiet, like it held the weight of thousands of unsaid stories. Arya continued. When the Hollow Chief rose twisted by the stone's memories, our people sealed the relic away. We created the cavern, the warnings, the boundaries. She looked at him intensely. The Apache guarded this place for generations, without knowing why. Only that it must remain untouched. And now, I ruined everything, Talik muttered bitterly. To his surprise, Arya shook her head. No, the stone would not have awakened. For you, unless it had a reason. She stepped closer, her voice softening. It responded to your spirit, to something inside you that even you may not see. Talik felt heat rise in his chest, but it wasn't from the glowing mark. Her presence was unsettling not because she frightened him, but because she seemed to know him in ways he didn't fully understand. It was as if the stone had connected them the moment he touched it. Arya studied his face, her expression a mix of worry and reluctant acceptance. The memories inside you will be heavy. They may change you, but you are not alone. What does that mean? It means, she said quietly, that from this moment on, your fate is tied to mine. Your soul carries my people's last warnings, and she hesitated, as if the words cost her something. I am bound to guide you. Talik swallowed hard. Bound, the word carried both comfort and danger. Arya extended her hand not to touch him, but in a gesture of fragile trust, come. We must leave this place before the stone's awakening draws unwanted eyes. Talik hesitated, for only a heartbeat, then nodded. Together, they turned toward the exit to strangers, tied by an ancient force neither fully understood as they walked out of the cavern. Talik couldn't shake the feeling that something inside him had shifted forever, and the world outside would soon feel the consequences. Night fell long before Talik and Arya reached the outskirts of his village. The desert sky glittered with sharp, cold stars, but Talik barely noticed them. His mind kept drifting to the burn in his palm, the mark pulsing like a second heartbeat. Every few steps, a faint shimmer flickered beneath his skin, as if the light wanted to break free. Arya walked beside him in silence, her senses alert, her expression unreadable. The quiet between them was not companionable. It was heavy, like both were listening for something neither could name. When the first wave hit, Talik staggered. A blinding flash tore through his vision. Not outside, but inside his mind. He saw a battlefield drenched in red dust. Figures clashed. Screams echoed. A towering shadow with hollow eyes raised a spear of obsidian. And Ventilek gasped and dropped to one knee. Talik Arya grabbed his arm, steadying him. The visions are starting. Her voice sounded distant, like she was underwater. Talik clenched his teeth as another surge slammed into him. The battlefield vanished and was replaced by something worse. An ancient city burning as people fled. A woman carrying a child. A tower collapsing. A man chanting over a stone, just like the one in the cavern. And through it all, that same shadow. Watching Talik jerked back into reality, breath ragged. Sweat dripped down his forehead. I saw, he struggled to form the words, so many people, dying, running. That thing Arya's eyes softened with pity. The memories of my people, they're imprinting on you. The stone doesn't. Just show the past, it forces you to feel it. Talik felt anger coil inside him. Why me? I didn't ask for this. No one ever does, she said quietly. They continued walking, though Talek's steps were slower now. Every few minutes a new flicker of vision threatened him, a face screaming, a storm of black smoke, the shadowed figure lifting its hollowed gaze directly at him. Each time Talek felt a piece of himself slipping. By the time they reached the village boundary, the mark on his hand was glowing a bright, painful white. Arya touched his wrist gently. "You must hide it." "How?" Talek snapped, too exhausted to hide his frustration. "It burns like fire." She tore a strip of cloth from her sleeve and wrapped it tightly around his hand. "Your people cannot see this. Not yet. They will fear you're worse." Talek swallowed hard. The idea of losing his place, his family, it shook him more than the visions. But before he could respond, a voice called out from the shadows. "Talek, is that you?" Elder Nahava stepped forward, lantern in hand. His wrinkled face was stern, but worry flickered in his eyes. "We heard shouting near the ridge. Did you find something?" Talek opened his mouth, but Arya subtly stepped in front of him, not enough to be suspicious, but enough to shield him. "He found nothing dangerous," she said smoothly, "only loose stones and wind." Nahava's gaze flicked to her, studying her unusual clothing. "You are not from our people." "No," Arya replied politely. "I am a traveler seeking shelter." The elder hesitated. Talek could almost see him calculating the risk. After a moment, he nodded. "Very well, you may stay one night." As Nahava turned away, Arya leaned close to Talek. "Do not tell them yet. The stone's awakening will draw dark things. You must trust me." Talek wasn't sure he trusted anyone, not even himself, but he nodded anyway. Later that night, as he lay in his bed, the mark beneath the cloth bandage flared again. A soft glow lit the room. Talek stared at it, fear twisting inside him, because, for the first time, it wasn't just the past he saw something approaching, something searching for him. Sleep didn't come easily to Talek that night. Every time he closed his eyes, the stone's memories clawed at him, flashes of burning cities, screams twisting into the wind, and that same towering shadow with hollow eyes staring directly into his soul. But just before dawn, something changed. The visions sharpened. This time he wasn't watching the past. He was watching something unfold right now. He saw a distant plain under moonlight. Smoke curled upward. A group of riders' twisted figures with ash-gray skin and ribs like open cages moved like predators across the sand. At their center rode a massive being draped in tattered furs, his face hidden behind a carved mask of bone. The air around him pulsed with a dark rhythm, like a heartbeat gone wrong. Talek's breath caught. The hollow chief Araya's voice from earlier echoed in his mind. He seeks the stone's power. He seeks the memories. Now inside you, the riders halted. The hollow chief raised his head slowly, and the moment his hollow gaze lifted toward the horizon, Talek felt it like a spear through his chest. It wasn't just a vision. The hollow chief was sensing him. The world around Talek snapped back. He bolted upright, breathing hard. The cloth around his marked hand glowed fiercely like a trapped star. Before he could steady himself, a soft knock sounded on his door. Araya's voice opened the door quietly. He did, and she slipped inside, cloak pulled tight around her shoulders. Her eyes widened when she saw the glowing bandage. "You felt him, didn't you?" she whispered. Talek nodded. "He's moving." With an army, Araya's expression tightened. "Then we don't have much time." Outside, the village was beginning to stir. Women tending fires, hunters preparing their horses, elders murmuring prayers. Everything looked peaceful, normal, and yet Talek knew that a storm was riding toward them, one that no Apache warrior had ever faced. Arya motioned him to sit. "I should have told you earlier," she said. "The hollow chief feeds on souls. He takes. They are trapped inside, twisted, suffering. When he rises again, he gathers more to rebuild his strength." Talek clenched his jaw. "And he wants mine." "He wants what's inside you," she corrected gently. "The memories of my people. The knowledge of how he was defeated once." Talek felt pressure behind his ribs, like his heartbeat was trying to escape, "So he'll come here." Yes, Arya didn't soften the truth. She respected him too much to lie. "Your village is small. It will fall quickly if we stay." The idea of leaving his home, his people, without explanation, Talek felt it cut deep, sharper than any vision. They are my blood. I cannot abandon them. Arya stepped closer, her voice firm but compassionate. If you stay, you doom them. If you leave, you give them a chance to survive. The Hollow Chief wants you, not them. Once he senses you are gone, he will follow your trail instead. Swallowed hard, her logic was brutal but clear. A shout echoed from the edge of the village. Then another fearful, urgent Talek, and Arya ran outside. Warriors and elders were staring westward as a dark plume of smoke spiraled into the sky. The wind carried the distant echo of war cries, twisted inhuman. Arya's face paled. He's closer than I thought. Nahava, the elder. What is happening? What danger comes? Talek opened his mouth, but for the first time in his life, he didn't know how to speak the truth. The Hollow Chief's army crested the far ridge, like a wave of living shadows. Talek turned to Arya. She nodded once. They had to run. They had to leave now, because the enemy wasn't just coming for Talek. He was coming for Talek's soul. The moment Talek saw the Hollow Chief's army spilling over the distant ridge, a cold, sharp clarity cut through him. There was no time left for hesitation, no room for questions. Survival his and the village's depended on one choice. He had to leave. Arya grabbed his wrist. Talek now, if he reaches the village while you're here, no one will survive. It tore Talek apart to turn his back on his home. He heard children shouting, women pulling blankets from clotheslines, hunters rushing to the western gate. No one understood what was coming, and Talek couldn't explain, not without causing chaos, not without losing time he didn't have. Nahava's voice echoed behind him. Talek, where are you going? Talek forced himself not to look back. Arya whispered, if your people see you flee, they'll panic. Move, keep moving. Through narrow side paths and behind low brush walls, they slipped away from the main huts unseen. Talek's legs moved on instinct, but his heart felt like stone. Every step felt like betrayal. When they reached the shadowed edge of the desert, Arya stopped. Talek, she said softly, I know what this costs you, but leaving them is saving them. He didn't answer. Words felt useless against the ache. A furious cry tore across the desert wind, inhuman, ancient, powerful. The ground vibrated beneath their feet. Talek didn't need a vision to know who it belonged to. The Hollow Chief had found their trail. Run, Arya said. They sprinted across the open plain. Behind them, the horizon darkened as riders mounted skeletal beasts and charged forward, kicking up clouds of ash. Talek heard the thundering pace of hooves, or whatever those creatures had instead of hooves gaining on them. Arya raised her hand. Symbols of light flared in the air, forming a shimmering barrier behind them. The riders slammed into it. The ground shook, but cracks formed instantly. Arya's face tightened with pain. It won't hold long, she yelled. Talek grabbed her arm. Then don't hold each run. She released the barrier, letting it shatter like glass. They pushed forward, lungs burning. Far ahead, the land rose into canyons, sharp walls of stone that could hide them if they reached them in time. But the riders were closing fast. Talek skidded to a halt, turned, and planted his spear in the ground. We can't outrun them. The mark on his hand blazed like a small sun. But we can slow them. Arya's eyes widened. No, if you use the stone's power now, you'll lose control. Better me than my village, he said. She hesitated, then nodded. The first rider lunged toward them, a creature with hollow sockets for eyes. Talek felt the stone's energy pulse through his veins, wild, burning, overwhelming. Instinct took over. He thrust his glowing palm forward, not fully knowing what he was doing. A burst of brilliant light exploded outward. The rider disintegrated. Talek stumbled back, gasping. The force ripped through him like lightning. His vision blurred. Arya caught his arm, steadying him even as two more riders charged. This time, Arya reacted. She drew a blade that seemed to form from thin air silver light, condensing into metal. With a graceful, deadly arc, she cut through the first creature. Talek recovered enough to block the second with his spear, driving it into the sand. Together, they fought, clumsy, desperate, but united. Talek's raw power and Arya's precision were an unexpected combination. The riders faltered, then retreated, melting back into the shadows. But the victory was small. Behind them, distant but unmistakable, the Hollow Chief's roar shook the air again. Arya sheathed her blade and grabbed Talik's arm. "He knows you're awakened. He won't stop now." Talik looked at her, chest heaving. "So we keep running?" "No," she said softly. "We start fighting together." For the first time, Talik didn't feel entirely alone. Terrified, yes, confused, absolutely, but not alone. And that fragile alliance, it was the only chance. Either of them had dawn, painted the desert in streaks of gold, and rose as Talik and Arya crossed into the wilderness beyond Apache territory. The air was cooler here, quieter, yet neither of them felt at ease. Every shadow looked alive. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. The Hollow Chief's presence clung to Talik's mind like a dark echo. Arya paused at a ridge, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. "He's tracking the stones awakening," she said. "Not your footsteps. That gives us time, but not much." Talik adjusted the strap of the water skin across his shoulder. "Where are we going exactly? You keep saying the mesa, but what's there?" Arya drew a deep breath, answers, "And maybe a way to control what's inside you." Talik didn't respond immediately. He looked down at his bandaged hand. Flexing his fingers, even wrapped, the warmth pulsed through the cloth as if the stone's memory wanted to speak. "Control," he muttered. "I can barely keep my head straight." Arya stepped closer, her expression softening. "That's why we're going to the broken mesa. My people once lived there. Those ruins hold secrets the Hollow Chief could never destroy." She hesitated, then added quietly, "You'll need them." The landscape shifted as they walked. Dusty plains gave way to massive stone pillars rising from the earth like ancient guardians. A canyon cut through the land ahead, its walls streaked with crimson and gold. Talik recognized it from stories his grandmother used to tell. "The Whispering Gorge," he murmured. Arya stopped Talik. "This place is sacred. Should we cross it?" He nodded. "If I'm marked by something older than both our peoples, then sacred ground is the right place to go." Arya held his gaze for a moment, then stepped forward. As they entered the gorge, an eerie calm settled over them. The wind blew through narrow stone corridors, creating soft, haunting tones. It sounded almost like voices whispers from another time. Talik paused. "Do you hear that?" Arya nodded. "Echo spirits. They linger in places touched by time and memory." She reached out and gently touched his elbow, guiding him forward. Talik tried to ignore the sensation, the strange warmth that bloomed in his chest when she touched him. It wasn't the stone's power. It was something more human, more dangerous. Halfway through the gorge, Talik suddenly staggered another vision, but this one was different. He stood on a mountain of broken stone. Moonlight washed over thousands of Icorians' kneeling hands, raised in surrender. The Hollow Chief towered above them, chanting a forbidden spell. The air warped, souls lifted like smoke from their bodies. Talik gasped and clutched his chest. Arya rushed to him. "Talik, what is it?" He shook his head, breath shallow. "I saw him stealing souls, your people." He swallowed hard. "Arya, he didn't just kill them, he consumed them." Pain flashed across her face, raw and almost unbearable. "That is why he cannot be allowed to rise again." The vision faded, but Talik still felt the agony of thousands in his bones. They continued, quieter now, until they reached the canyon's end. Ahead lay the broken mesa, its top shattered by ancient magic, its once mighty structures reduced to jagged ruins. Talik stared. "Your people lived here." Arya nodded slowly. "This was our heart, our sanctuary. The stone was the last thing we protected." Talik's chest tightened not from pain, but from something like grief. He suddenly understood Arya better. The weight she carried, the loss she never escaped. Arya stepped closer to him. "Talik, what we find here may change everything. About you, about the stone, about us." He met her gaze. Then let it. The wind brushed past them, carrying the scent of dust and forgotten history. Together, they stepped onto the broken mesa. The past was waiting for them, and so was the truth Talik wasn't ready to face. The broken mesa stretched before them like a graveyard of a forgotten empire. Cracked pillars jutted toward the sky like bleached bones, and shattered stone platforms trembled under the weight of history. As Talik and Arya stepped deeper into the ruins, Silence wrapped around them thick, reverent, almost suffocating. Arya walked with purpose, her eyes scanning the ruins as if searching for something lost long ago. Talek followed, though his attention drifted between the ancient structures and the tightening knot in his chest. The visions were becoming more frequent now, more vivid, more painful. The mesa was once the heart of the Icorians, Arya whispered, where our elders gathered to guard the stones, where our stories were born. She touched a fragment of a pillar with trembling fingers. Now, only echoes remain. Talek paused, watching her. There was an ache behind her words that he couldn't ignore. He wanted to say something comforting, maybe, but he didn't know how to calm 1,000 years of grief before he could speak. Arya straightened and gestured for him to follow her into a half-collapsed chamber carved directly into the mesa. Inside, faded murals covered the stone tapestry of history, power, and warning. Figures of light and shadow clashed in a cosmic dance. Talek stepped closer, running his fingers over a mural depicting a warrior holding a glowing stone in his hand, much like the mark on Talek's palm. "What is this?" he asked. Arya swallowed. Hard the vessel, Talek turned sharply toward her. "What does that mean?" She crossed the chamber, lighting a small crystal embedded in the wall. The glow illuminated another mural, this one darker. A lone warrior stood in a sea of shadows, his body dissolving into light as he sealed a monstrous figure beneath the earth. Talek's heart pounded. "That's the Hollow Chief." "And the one who stopped him," Arya whispered, "was the vessel chosen in that era." A long silence stretched between them. Then Arya spoke again, her voice unsteady. "Talek, the stone does not just give visions. It chooses one soul every century to hold its memories and its power." She hesitated before adding, "A vessel." Talek frowned. "Chosen for what? To seal the Hollow Chief?" she said softly. "Forever." The words hit Talek like a blow. "Seal? What do you mean, seal?" Arya looked away. "The vessel's soul becomes the lock. The stone uses their spirit to trap the darkness. It requires surrender." Talek's stomach dropped. "You mean the vessel dies?" "Not dies," Arya murmured. "Their soul dissolves into the stone. Their body fades. They become memory itself." Talek backed away, shaking his head. No, that can't be. I didn't ask for this. I didn't choose this. The stone chose you," Arya whispered. Pain flickered across her face, not because she feared for the world, but because she feared for him. "I didn't want. You two know yet?" "I wanted to find another answer." Talek's breath quickened, raw panic clawing at his chest. "So I'm supposed to give up my soul? To become some sacrifice?" Arya stepped closer, but he pulled away. "Talek, you should have told me," he snapped. "You knew." His voice cracked. "And you let me believe I could control this?" Arya flinched, guilt carved into every line of her face. I prayed there was another path. I didn't want this fate for you." Talek turned away, gripping his hair. His hand throbbed beneath the bandage, glowing brighter. Hotter, as if, responding to the truth now exposed, Arya reached for him but stopped her hand midair, fingers trembling. "Talek, I'm sorry." He closed his eyes, voice breaking. "Thought you were guiding me. But you were preparing me to die," Arya whispered. "I was trying to save you." But Talek didn't believe that. Not now, not anymore. The truth of the stone hung over them like a death sentence, and for the first time since the cavern, Talek felt truly afraid. Arya had always been composed, shy, steady-voiced, and disciplined in a way Talek both respected and feared. But in the days leading up to the truth, he had noticed something painful tugging at the edges of her calm. She spoke less, avoided his gaze, and every time he reached out, whether with a question or a quiet moment, she pulled back as if his touch burned more than the cursed mark on his palm. Talek didn't push. He trusted her, maybe too much. The tension finally snapped on the night they camped near the cracked mesa, a place where the earth seemed torn apart by old gods. The air was thin and cold. Wind howled through the jagged rock, as if whispering secrets it didn't want mortals to hear. Talek couldn't sleep. The mark on his palm pulsed, glowing faintly under the moonlight. It felt heavier than usual, not painful, but aware. Arya sat a short distance away, her back turned to him, staring into the darkness as though something out there held her captive. Arya Talek said softly. Silence. You've been hiding something from me. This time she flinched. He stood, walked toward her, and gently touched her shoulder. She stiffened beneath his hand. I need to know, he said, voice low, steady. What is the stone turning me into? What aren't you telling me? Arya's breath hitched. She wanted to speak. He could see it, but fear wrestled with honesty inside her eyes. Talek, if I tell you, you won't stay. His chest tightened. Try me, slowly, like someone lifting a heavy curse. She turned toward him. The moonlight made her look fragile in a way he had never seen. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, she lifted the wooden box she always kept close, the one she swore never to open unless it was life or death. Tonight she opened it. Inside lay an ancient scroll, brittle and darkened with age. She unfolded it with trembling hands. Carved symbols glowed on the parchment, the same symbols that burned on Talek's palm. This is the prophecy I never wanted you to read, she whispered. Talek leaned in. The symbols rearranged themselves, revealing a clear translation. The vessel of the Soul Stone will seal the Hollow Chief with the total surrender of their own spirit. Only death can complete the binding. He stared at it. The world tilted. You knew, he said quietly. You knew touching the stone would cost me my soul, and you didn't tell me. Her voice cracked. I thought I could save you. I thought I could find another way before you discovered it. I didn't want you to carry this burden. Talek stepped back. The wind cut between them like a sharp blade. So you decided for me. Tears welled in Arya's eyes. He had never seen her cry, not once. Talek, I wasn't trying to betray you. I was trying to protect you. He shook his head, pain hollowing his chest. No, you were protecting yourself. You were afraid of losing me. Her lips parted, but no denial came. That silence, more than the prophecy, more than the curse, broke something inside him. He walked past her, each step carving distance between their hearts. The mark on his palm no longer felt like a burden, it felt like a chain. Talek, please, she whispered. But he didn't turn back. Not because he hated her, but because betrayal from someone. You have begun to love hits deeper than any blade. Tonight, he needed space, space to breathe, space to hurt, space to decide whether his fate was his, or already chosen. The world shifted in the days after Talek walked away. Arya felt the absence like a wound, silent, raw, and bleeding with every breath. But she didn't chase him. She couldn't. The Hollow Chief was moving faster than anyone expected. Villages fell overnight. Spirit fires were extinguished, leaving entire regions in cold darkness. His army of shadows marched across the land, consuming everything in their path, and all paths led to one place. The Sacred Ridge, the last stronghold of ancient magic. Elders from different tribes gathered there, preparing for a final battle that many doubted they would survive. Their warriors sharpened spears and whispered prayers, but fear trembled beneath every ritual. The Hollow Chief was not merely an enemy, he was a nightmare resurrected. Arya stood at the ridge's highest point, wind whipping her hair, scanning the horizon for the one person she needed most. She had no right to hope, not after the truth she concealed, yet hope flickered anyway, stubborn and fragile. She whispered into the empty air, Talek, don't come because of duty. Come because you choose to. But the horizon stayed silent. Meanwhile, miles away, Talek walked through burned forests and ash-filled skies. Every step felt heavier. His anger had faded, but the ache remained an ache not just of betrayal, but of something far more terrifying. The fear of losing Arya permanently. He remembered her voice, her trembling hands, her tears, and he remembered why she hid the truth, because she cared. The realization struck him like a spear. He cared too. The Hollow Chief's roar echoed across the plains, rattling the ground beneath Talek's feet. The call of war snapped him out of his thoughts. He looked toward the Sacred Ridge, its sharp peaks outlined by gathering storm clouds. Time to choose. He ran. The Sacred Ridge trembled under the stomping shadows of the Hollow Chief's army. Smoke swallowed the horizon. Warriors formed defensive lines, shields ready, but their eyes widened with dread as the monstrous figure emerged, towering, armored in soul-forged bone, eyes burning like dying stars. Arya drew her blade beside the elders. Her heartbeat pounded with a painful question. "Where are you, Talek?" The hollow chief raised his colossal spear. Shadows swarmed forward like a black tide. Then, from the opposite ridge, came a thunderous shout. Arya, her blade almost slipped. From her hand, Talek charged down the slope, the glowing mark on his palm blazing like a fallen sun. For a moment, the battlefield paused, the kind of pause that lives only in legends. Warriors stared. Shadows recoiled. Wind held its breath. Arya's chest tightened with something, between relief and disbelief. Talek reached her side without needing words, their eyes locked pain, an apology passing silently between them. "You came back," she whispered. "I'm not losing you," he said. "Not to fate, not to the Hollow Chief, not to anything." The Hollow Chief roared, the sound shaking loose stones from the cliffs. Talek lifted his marked hand. Power surged through him, wild, ancient, burning like the memories of 1,000 spirits. The ground beneath him cracked, glowing with the same symbols as the prophecy scroll. Arya grabbed his arm, her voice trembling. "Talek, this could take your soul." He glanced at hers, fierce, steady, resolved. It was never mine alone. Then he charged into the heart of the battle. Light exploded outward, blinding, pure, unstoppable. The Shadow Army disintegrated under its weight. The Hollow Chief staggered, roaring in fury as Talek struck him with the full force of the stone's power. The sky split open, swirling with fury and fire. Arya watched, torn between awe and terror, as Talek burned his spirit to hold the monster back. The moment the prophecy spoke of this was the price, and she feared what would be left of him when the light dimmed.